The first encounter with the death trap, Lyra had traveled across galaxies before. But nothing prepared her for the strange world of Earth. She had seen glowing crystal cities on Aquilus Prime, walked through the gravity tunnels of Orin 5, and survived the freezing storms of Velra 9. But the human home assigned to her by Captain Reed held a danger she never expected. It was small, silent, and hidden behind a white door at the end of the hallway. The humans called it a bathroom on her first morning on Earth. Lyra wandered through the house, curious about everything. Her long silver hair shimmered in the sunlight streaming through the windows, her violet eyes scanning every object like a scientist on a new mission. When she opened the mysterious white door, she found a room with shining tiles, a mirror, and a strange porcelain seat filled with water. She tilted her head, confused. Why would humans keep water inside such a small bowl? And why was there a lever attached to it? Her translator chip whispered the word toilet into her mind. But that didn't make things clearer. Lyra stepped closer, bending down to look inside. Her reflection shimmered in the water's surface. Suddenly, the thought struck her like a lightning bolt. This was a trap. In her culture, flowing water in an enclosed object was often a defense mechanism. On her home planet, creatures called Vornas would dig pits, fill them with liquid, and hide inside to attack prey. What if this human toilet worked the same way? She stood up quickly and stepped back, her heart beat faster. Captain Reed, she called, her voice filled with alarm. The human captain walked in, still holding a mug of steaming coffee. "What's wrong now, Lyra?" he asked, looking amused. She pointed at the toilet with a trembling finger. "That thing," she said firmly, "is dangerous." Reed raised an eyebrow. "It's just a toilet," he said, taking a sip of coffee. "I know what it is," she replied. "And I also know it's a death trap." Reed stared at her for a moment, unsure if she was joking. Lyra, however, was deadly serious. She explained her theory. The water could pull you in. The seat was designed to lock you down, and the lever probably activated the killing mechanism. Reed laughed, which only made her more suspicious. "Here, I'll show you," he said, walking to the toilet and pressing the flush handle. The sudden roar of water made Lyra jump back against the wall. Her eyes went wide as the water swirled in a powerful spiral, then vanished down the hole. "You see?" she cried. "It's a vortex, a miniature black hole." Reed nearly spilled his coffee from laughing. "It's plumbing, Lyra, not a black hole," he said. But she shook her head. "In my world, we would call that a death vortex." Reed tried to explain how toilets worked, water pressure, pipes, and waste disposal systems, but Lyra only half listened. She kept glancing at the toilet like it might spring to life at any second. Every sound of dripping water in the bathroom made her tense up. "Do humans willingly put themselves in danger every day?" she asked. "Yes," Reed said with a smirk, "but not because of toilets." When Reed left the bathroom, Lyra stayed behind, determined to investigate further. She crouched low, her fingers hovering over the seat. It was cool to the touch. Smooth and strangely heavy, the water was clear, but she didn't trust it. She dropped a small silver coin from her pocket into the bowl and stepped back. The coin sank slowly, resting at the bottom. At first, nothing happened. Then she pressed the lever. The roar returned. Water spun in a furious spiral, and the coin disappeared into the depths. Her suspicions were confirmed. Anything placed inside would be swallowed, never to return. Later that day, Reed found her in the kitchen, sitting stiffly on a chair with her legs crossed. "Are you avoiding the bathroom?" he asked. "Yes," she replied. "I value my life," Reed sighed. "You're going to have to use it eventually," he said. "Not until you deactivate the vortex," she answered, crossing her arms. Reed rolled his eyes but decided not to argue. That night, as Lyra prepared for bed, she heard the sound again, the deep whoosh of flushing water. She froze, her heart pounding. Was the trap activating on its own? Was it hunting? Cautiously, she crept down the hall and peeked through the bathroom door. There was no one inside. yet the water was still swirling slowly. Her skin prickled. It was alive. She was sure of it. And so, on her very first day on Earth, Lyra made a silent promise to herself. She would survive this planet. She would learn its dangers, and she would never, ever fall victim to the human death trap they called a toilet, * cultural misunderstandings. For the next 2 days, Lyra avoided the bathroom completely. She moved around the house like a stealthy shadow, sipping only tiny amounts of water so she wouldn't have to face the death trap. Captain Reed noticed she was acting strangely, but he didn't push her. He figured she would get used to human technology in her own time, but Lyra had other plans. She decided to study human behavior. If humans could survive the toilet without being sucked into the vortex, there had to be some secret technique they were using. So she began her research. Her first target was Reed himself. She followed him silently down the hallway one morning, her bare feet making no sound on the wooden floor. When he stepped into the bathroom, she stopped just short of the door. The faint sound of rushing water echoed moments later. She leaned closer, pressing her ear to the wall. How was he surviving this? What kind of human strength allowed him to challenge the vortex daily? She tried observing other humans too, on their second trip into the city. She slipped away while Reed was buying supplies and wandered into a shopping plaza. Inside, she found a public restroom. She didn't dare go inside, but she waited near the entrance. One by one, humans entered, disappeared for a few minutes, and came back out looking perfectly fine. Some were even smiling. It made no sense. Were they immune to the trap, or was the toilet programmed to attack only aliens? Her curiosity got the better of her. She pushed the door open slightly and peeked inside. Rows of porcelain death traps lined the wall, each in its own little cubicle. The sound of water flushing made her flinch. She saw a young woman walk out casually, adjusting her clothes. The human even stopped to wash her hands, as if nothing dangerous had happened. Lyra's mind spun with confusion. "What are you doing?" a voice suddenly asked. She jumped back and turned around to see Reed standing there, holding a bag of groceries. He stared at her like she'd been caught committing a crime. "I was observing," she said. "Observing what?" he asked, clearly annoyed. "The ritual," she replied seriously. "Your people risk their lives for it every day." Reed pinched the bridge of his nose. "It's not a ritual, it's just basic hygiene," he said. "But you all go in alone," she argued. "You face the vortex without any weapons, and yet you return unharmed. How?" "It's plumbing, Lyra," he said again, but she only frowned deeper, back at the house. Lyra decided to try an experiment. If she could figure out the human technique, maybe she could use the toilet safely. She dragged a chair into the HFY bathroom and sat in front of the toilet for nearly an hour, studying it like a predator studies its prey. Every small bubble in the water, every tiny drip from the tank, she recorded in her datapad. When Reed walked past and saw her, he stopped in disbelief. "Are you seriously taking notes on my toilet?" he asked. "Yes," she replied without looking up. "It's the most dangerous device in your home, and yet you keep it in a small room without any security system." Reed shook his head and decided to give her a direct demonstration. "Fine," he said. "You're going to watch me use it, step by step." Her eyes widened. "Humans have a training ritual?" she asked. "It's not a ritual," he muttered. "It's just... Look, I'll show you." She stood at the doorway as he explained the seat, the handle, the flushing mechanism, and how water pressure worked. When he flushed, she immediately stepped back into the hall. "That sound," she said, "is the roar of the beast." Reed laughed. "You're impossible," he said. She crossed her arms. "You're reckless," she replied. The next morning, she decided to test her courage. She entered the bathroom alone, determined to at least touch the seat without panicking. She sat for exactly 3 seconds, then jumped up and left, breathing hard. Her progress was slow, but she told herself it was better than nothing. Still, her mind kept returning to one troubling thought. If the toilet didn't kill humans, Maybe it was waiting. Maybe it was just pretending to be harmless until the right victim came along, and she had no intention of becoming that victim. The training session by the third day, Captain Reed had reached his limit. He could handle Lyra refusing to try coffee, or her calling Earth skies too blue. But her fear of the toilet was getting ridiculous. She was drinking less water, pacing around nervously, and even avoiding the hallway where the bathroom was. "This has to end," Reed muttered to himself after breakfast. He walked into the living room where Lyra was sitting stiffly on the couch, holding her datapad like it was a shield. "Lyra," he said firmly, "we're doing toilet training today." Her eyes widened in shock. "You have a ritual for it?" she asked. "It's not a ritual, it's education," Reed replied. "And you're the student." She crossed her arms. "I will not face the vortex without armor," she declared. "Fine," Reed said. "Wear your armor, bring a shield." "If you want, I don't care, but you're learning how to use it today." Lyra narrowed her eyes but stood up, marching to her quarters. 10 minutes later, she returned fully dressed in her silver combat suit, helmet and all. The armor hummed softly with alien energy. Reed rubbed his temples. "You're going to look like you're invading the bathroom," he muttered. "I'm going to survive it," she said. He led her to the bathroom and stepped inside. "First, sit down," he instructed. She hesitated, scanning the seat with a small handheld scanner. "No life signs detected," she said softly. "Because it's not alive," Reed sighed. She slowly lowered herself onto the seat, keeping her boots planted firmly on the floor. Her helmet visor slid down with a click. Reed shook his head. "Okay, now this lever here," he said, pointing to the flush handle, "is what makes the water move." "I know," she said quickly. "It summons the vortex." "No, it flushes waste away through the pipes," Reed corrected. "Into the abyss," she added. Reed decided to demonstrate. He dropped a small piece of tissue into the bowl. "Watch," he said, pressing the handle. The swirling water roared, carrying the tissue away. Lyra yelped and jumped to her feet, armor servos whirring loudly. "My sensors picked up rapid gravitational pull," she exclaimed. "That's called suction," Reed said with a laugh. "It's harmless. It tried to take my armor," she replied, horrified. Reed was almost enjoying himself now. "All right, let's try something else," he said. He handed her the handle. "You do it." Her gloved fingers hovered over it like she was about to press a self-destruct button. She took a deep breath and pulled. The water spun. The sound echoed, and she stumbled back against the wall. "I did it," she whispered. "I controlled the vortex," Reed smirked. "Yes. Congratulations, you flushed a toilet." But her victory was short-lived. She leaned over the bowl to look inside and accidentally triggered her armor's hazard alarm. A high-pitched beep filled the room, followed by an automated alien voice saying, "Warning, hazardous water detected." Lyra jumped back again, nearly knocking Reed into the sink. "I told you," she said, pointing at the bowl. "It's dangerous." Reed decided to switch tactics. "Look," he said, "if you're going to stay on Earth, you need to adapt." "I have adapted," she replied. "I now know where not to go." "That's not adaptation, that's avoidance," he countered. He explained every part of the toilet, the tank, the pipes, the water seal, and why the flush existed. Lyra listened, occasionally making skeptical noises when he finished. She tilted her head. "So the vortex is actually a transportation system for waste?" "Yes," Reed nodded. "It's not going to swallow you." She paused, then asked seriously, "Can it be weaponized?" Reed stared at her. "Please don't weaponize my toilet," he said. By the end of the session, Lyra was able to sit on the toilet for a full minute without flinching. She even flushed twice in a row, though she stepped back quickly both times. "This is progress," Reed said. "This is survival," Lyra corrected. As she left the bathroom, she looked over her shoulder at the toilet. The porcelain gleamed innocently under the bathroom light. But in her mind, she was sure it was watching her, waiting for the moment she would let her guard down. The revenge plan by the fourth day. Lyra had convinced herself of one thing. The human toilet was not just a hazard, it was an enemy. She had survived several close encounters now, but she knew the danger remained. It was only a matter of time before the vortex claimed its first victim, and she wasn't going to wait for that moment. No, she would strike first. Captain Reed had gone out for supplies, leaving her alone in the house. The moment the door closed, Lyra sprang into action. She retrieved her alien toolkit from her room, a sleek black case filled with glowing instruments, scanning devices, and something that looked suspiciously like a plasma cutter. Her plan was simple. Step 1. Disassemble the toilet. Step 2. Disable its vortex core. Step 3. Celebrate victory. She entered the bathroom wearing her combat gloves and helmet. The toilet sat there, silent, pretending to be harmless. Lyra narrowed her eyes. Not today, she whispered. First, she scanned it with a biosignature reader. 0 life signs, the device reported. That's what it wants you to think, she muttered. Next, she switched to her structural integrity scanner. The display lit up with a blueprint of the toilet's inner mechanisms. Pipes, valves, and the water tank glowed in holographic blue. She pointed to the swirling outline in the bowl. There's the vortex chamber, she said to herself. It has to go. Using a plasma wrench, she loosened the bolts at the base. The first one came off easily. The second refused to budge. She gritted her teeth, applying more force. The wrench slipped, and she nearly fell forward into the bowl. She caught herself just in time. That was close, she whispered. Too close. Once the bolts were removed, she moved to the tank. Lifting the lid, she gasped. Inside, the water rippled as if it sensed her presence. I knew it, she said. It's alive. She poked at the float valve with a screwdriver. The sudden rush of water startled her, and she stumbled backward. Bumping into the wall, the flush activated, sending the water spinning. She screamed. Vortex defense mode engaged, and dropped her screwdriver in panic. But Lyra wasn't done, if anything. The toilet's resistance only made her more determined. She activated her plasma cutter, the blade glowing with white-hot energy. This ends now, she declared, lowering the blade toward the porcelain. That's when Reed's voice boomed from behind her. What in the galaxy are you doing? She froze, caught mid-sabotage. Neutralizing the threat, she said without hesitation. Reed stepped inside, eyes widening as he saw the glowing blade inches from his toilet. You're trying to kill my plumbing, he shouted. It's a hostile vortex generator, she argued. I'm saving us both. Reed quickly powered down her plasma cutter and pulled it from her hands. It's a toilet, Lyra, he said. You don't dismantle a toilet. On my planet, we dismantle anything that tries to eat us, she replied. It's not eating anyone. He groaned. Yet, she said darkly. The bathroom floor was soaked from her earlier tampering. Tools were scattered everywhere, and the toilet looked slightly tilted. Reed rubbed his forehead. Do you realize you almost caused a flood? He asked. Yes, she said proudly. Collateral damage in the name of victory is acceptable. He spent the next hour repairing what she had undone, while she sat in the hallway with her arms crossed. Every now and then, she peeked into the bathroom, glaring at the toilet. When Reed finally emerged, he pointed at her. No more touching it, he warned. I won't touch it, she promised. But I will watch it. That night, Lyra added a new entry to her personal mission log. Earth Day 4. Enemy remains operational, but its weaknesses are mapped. We'll consider Phase 2 of neutralization if opportunity arises. And though she was banned from tampering with the toilet, she kept her toolkit ready, because in her mind, the war wasn't over. The public restroom disaster by the 5th day. Captain Reed was sure Lyra had at least learned to tolerate the toilet at home. She still eyed it with suspicion, but she wasn't trying to destroy it anymore. He thought maybe, just maybe, she was ready for the outside world. He was wrong that morning. They traveled to Orion Gate, a massive human spaceport filled with ships, travelers, and food stalls from across the galaxy. The place was loud, colorful, and busy. Lyra's eyes darted everywhere, taking in the strange mix of alien and human life. Everything seemed exciting until she froze mid-step. Her armor sensors beeped softly, warning her of multiple vortex signals nearby. She turned to her left and saw it, a large public restroom. Through the open doorway, she spotted rows of gleaming porcelain units, each one identical to the death trap back at Reed's house, but these had no levers, no handles. They sat silently, waiting, her breath caught in her throat. "What are those?" she asked in a low voice. "Public toilets," Reed replied casually. "Automatic flush models." Her heart dropped. "Automatic?" she repeated. "Yeah, they flush by themselves when you move away," he explained. "You mean they attack without warning?" she said, horrified. "It's not an attack, it's convenience," Reed said. But she wasn't listening. A few hours later, after lunch at the spaceport's food court, Lyra found herself in trouble. She had tried to limit her water intake again, but the large glass of blue fruit juice she drank was catching up to her. She shifted uncomfortably, glancing at Reed. "Problem?" he asked. "I require a safe location," she admitted. "There's a restroom right there," he said, pointing. Her stomach tightened. "That's a war zone," she whispered. Reed sighed. "You'll be fine," he said. "Just go in, do your business, and come out." She took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and marched toward the entrance like a soldier heading into battle. Inside, the restroom was bright and strangely quiet. She stepped into one of the stalls, locking the door behind her. The seat gleamed like polished bone. She circled it once, scanning for traps. Nothing moved. "Maybe it's sleeping," she muttered. Finally, she sat down, tense and alert. It was quiet. Too quiet. Then, without warning, the toilet flushed. A loud whoosh echoed through the stall. Lyra jumped to her feet, knocking the toilet paper dispenser off its mount. "It's attacking!" she shouted. She tried to back away, but the automatic sensor triggered again. Another whoosh roared, splashing tiny droplets onto her armor. "My shields are compromised," she cried, fumbling with the stall door. The neighboring stall occupants paused mid-use, confused by the alien voice shouting battle reports. One of them leaned down to peek under the divider. Lyra saw the shadow and assumed reinforcements had arrived. She kicked the door open, rushing out into the main restroom area. The automatic sinks activated as she passed, sending streams of water shooting toward her hands. "They're everywhere," she yelled, her helmet visor fogged slightly. From her rapid breathing, a group of human women standing near the mirrors turned to stare. One of them asked cautiously, "Are you okay?" "No," Lyra replied without slowing down. "This facility is hostile." She burst out of the restroom into the main spaceport hall. Several travelers turned to look as she ran toward Reed. Armor dripping from the restroom's attacks, Reed stood there holding a bag of snacks. "Why do I hear screaming from the bathroom?" he asked. "They tried to drown me," she shouted, pointing back at the restroom. Reed rubbed his face with one hand. "They're automatic toilets, Lyra. They flush when you stand up," he said. "That's even worse," she replied. "They strike without provocation." A nearby spaceport security officer walked over, clearly concerned. "Is there a problem here?" he asked. "No," Reed said quickly. "Just a misunderstanding." "Yes," Lyra corrected. "A misunderstanding between your people and basic survival instincts." The officer gave them a strange look before walking away. Reed grabbed Lyra by the arm and led her toward the exit. "You're banned from public restrooms until further notice," he muttered. "That's fine," she said. "I'll find safer methods." As they boarded the shuttle back home, Lyra glanced back at the restroom one last time. The automatic toilet sat there, quiet and still, but in her mind, she could hear them laughing. They had won this round, but the war was far from over. Facing the fear. By the 6th day, Reed had made a decision. Enough was enough. Lyra couldn't keep living on Earth while treating every toilet like it was a lethal predator. If she stayed in fear, she'd either dehydrate herself or flood the house with another sabotage attempt. It was time for her to face the fear head-on. He found her sitting in the living room, sipping tea like a queen plotting against an invisible enemy. "Suit up," Reed said. "For what?" she asked suspiciously. "For your final training mission," he replied. Her eyes narrowed. "You mean?" "The vortex." "Yes, the vortex," Reed said. "It's time to master it." She hesitated, but Reed leaned in. "Think of it as a warrior's test," he said. "Once you pass, you can tell everyone on your planet you defeated the most feared human technology." Her posture straightened slightly. "You mean?" "I could return home as the first alien to conquer it," she said slowly. "Exactly," Reed nodded. That was all the motivation she needed. Within minutes, she was in her combat armor. The visor gleamed, her gloves tightened, and her breathing slowed into steady battle rhythm. Reed stood in the bathroom doorway like a coach preparing his fighter. "Remember," he said, "stay calm, don't overreact. And most importantly, don't press the flush until you're ready." Lyra stepped inside, the door closing behind her with a soft click. The toilet sat there in silence, but to her, it looked like a beast waiting in ambush. She walked in a slow circle around it, scanning every angle in her mind. She heard the voice of every commander she'd ever served. "Face your enemy with courage. Know its strengths, know its weaknesses." She took a deep breath, removed her helmet, and sat down. Nothing happened. No water movement. No sudden vortex activation. "Good," she whispered to herself. She stayed still for a few seconds, then leaned forward, her hands gripping the seat for balance. "This is my territory now," she said quietly. Minutes passed without incident. Her muscles began to relax. She even dared to look into the bowl. The water was still, calm, almost peaceful. Maybe Reed was right. Maybe it was harmless. Her heart rate slowed. Finally, it was time. She stood, reached for the flush handle, and paused. The handle glinted under the bathroom light, like the trigger of a legendary weapon. She took another deep breath and pressed it down. The roar came instantly, water spinning in a powerful spiral, the sound echoing in the small room. But this time, she didn't flinch. She watched the vortex work, pulling everything down into the pipes. For the first time, it felt less like an attack and more like a function. She exhaled slowly. "It's not trying to kill me," she said in disbelief. Reed opened the door, leaning against the frame with a grin. "See? You survived." Lyra tilted her head. "Yes, but it's still inefficient technology," she replied. Reed laughed. "I'll take that as progress." She placed her helmet back on and stood tall. "I have faced the vortex and emerged victorious," she said with pride. Reed rolled his eyes. "It's a toilet, not a dragon," he muttered. But Lyra was already imagining the story she would tell back on her homeworld. She would describe the porcelain beast, the deadly swirl, and her unmatched bravery. That night, she wrote a new entry in her mission log. Earth Day 6, Vortex engaged in single combat, neutralized threat through superior willpower, human ally witnessed victory. She closed the log with a small smile. The war was over, at least for now. The unexpected twist. The next morning, Lyra sat at the kitchen table with her datapad, typing furiously. Her fingers danced across the holographic keys, her violet eyes bright with pride. Captain Reed leaned against the counter, sipping his coffee. "What's got you so excited this early?" he asked. "I'm sending my victory report to the Galactic Council," she replied. "Oh no," Reed muttered, already sensing trouble in her message. Lyra described the deadly human vortex device in dramatic detail. She wrote about the battles she had fought, the close calls, and the final showdown. Every flush became a wave of destruction. Every drop of water, a calculated strike. And of course, she was the hero who had conquered it. She even included diagrams of the toilet's internal vortex chamber that she had scanned earlier. By the time she was done, The report was almost 20 pages long. Reed watched in disbelief as she pressed send. Lyra, you do realize they're going to think Earth is some kind of death planet, right? He said. It is a death planet, she replied seriously. Your toilets alone prove that. 2 weeks later, the first signs of her mistake arrived. A delegation of 5 alien diplomats landed at the spaceport, all from different species. They had come to Earth for trade negotiations. Reed was assigned to greet them, and unfortunately, Lyra insisted on tagging along. She stood proudly at his side as the aliens stepped off their shuttle, but instead of looking curious or friendly, they looked terrified. Is it true? One of them asked immediately, is what true? Reed replied, confused. The vortex traps, the alien said in a low voice. The water beasts that hide in your walls. Reed turned slowly to glare at Lyra. She gave him an innocent smile. I may have warned them, she admitted. From that moment on, chaos began. The aliens refused to enter any building that had indoor plumbing. At the welcome banquet, one ambassador excused himself to use the restroom, then returned pale and shaken after discovering a toilet in the stall. Another diplomat demanded an armed escort whenever passing near a bathroom door. One even brought a portable sandpit from his home planet so he wouldn't have to risk the vortex. Reed's patience wore thin. You've created interstellar toilet panic, he told Lyra. I've created awareness, she corrected. They will thank me when they live longer, Reed groaned. This is going to end up in the news, he said. It should, she replied. The galaxy deserves to know the truth. The situation reached peak absurdity during a city tour. One alien spotted a public restroom sign and immediately bolted in the opposite direction, tripping over a street vendor's cart. Another refused to walk down a hallway because it smelled faintly of danger. By the end of the day, Earth's human hosts were utterly confused, wondering why their guests seemed so skittish indoors. That night, back at Reed's house, Lyra sat in the living room, reviewing the day's events. I think it went well, she said. Reed stared at her in disbelief. They think toilets are carnivorous, he said flatly. They might be, she replied without missing a beat. As Reed buried his face in his hands, Lyra opened her datapad again. She began drafting a follow-up report titled, How to Survive. On Earth, the Vortex Protocol. It included step-by-step instructions, defensive strategies, and a section called Signs the Toilet is About to Strike. She was smiling the whole time, convinced she was doing the galaxy a great service. Outside, the human world went about its normal routines. In the bathroom down the hall, the toilet sat silently, gleaming under the light. If it had thoughts, it might have been amused. After all, thanks to Lyra, it had just become the most feared object in 3 star systems.